Welcome back to another how-to video. This is a new series where once a month I do a how-to video showing you guys how to navigate the hobby like a pro. Today, we are going to be talking about how to save money in this hobby, and we are going to do a little giveaway today. All you have to do is make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, leave a like, and then I want you to comment your favorite electric Pokemon. These are the cards we're giving away. We got a Bolton V, a couple nice trainers, and then I do have to announce the winner from last week's giveaway. The subscriber is Machine Man, and the member is at Cnathon90. So just shoot me an email or hit me up on Instagram. I'll get those cards sent out to you ASAP. And we do have to give a big thanks to our video sponsor real quick, and that is Metatcg. If you guys have a ton of bulk laying around, which I know a lot of you do, you guys are looking to get rid of it and trade it in for some amazing cards or cash, Metatcg is perfect. They take Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! They do have to be near mint, but look at some of the cards they have. First edition Rockets Mewtwo, first edition Dark Dragonite, the Deoxys EX, Pop Series 4, Charizard base set 2, and I swear every time I go on here, there's new cards. So I know a lot of people are trading their stuff in, and they make it so easy. You can just go right to sell your cards, Pokemon bulk submission. They even have a video showing you how to package everything, and then you just put the info in, and it's that simple. So definitely check them out. I'll have all the links in the description. But all right, let's get into it. So I normally like to have stuff up on the screen, but for this video, I'm just going to talk. So I apologize if I'm kind of all over the place, and it shouldn't be super long, probably like 10 minutes. So we're going to be talking about how to save money in this hobby. Now, for a lot of people in this hobby, if you even talk about Pokemon and money in the same sentence, you're a bad guy. You're not a true fan. You're not a true collector, which I cannot stand that take. I totally get it. If the person only cares about money and doesn't care about Pokemon at all, then that's totally understandable. But for a lot of people like myself, I care about money in this hobby because I just want to get more cards and boxes in this hobby. You know, if I got to buy a big lot on eBay that has 1 or 2 cards that I need and sell all the other cards, maybe get a couple graded, sell those so I can get those couple cards that I needed for free, I'm going to do that. And I have done that hundreds and hundreds of times. You know, if I'm going to sit and study the market and try to figure out when these cards are at their bottom before I buy them, you know, I'm going to do that because I don't want to waste money. I don't want to lose money. So that's why, you know, it's okay to think about money in Pokemon if you are a, serious collector and you want to have a crazy collection. Because to finish the collection that I want to finish, which is basically the best cards from every single era in all of Pokemon history, you can't just buy a bunch of ETBs and booster boxes and rip open a ton of packs because 99% of the time you're going to lose money on that stuff and you're not going to get the exact cards you need. Me, I think it's much smarter to buy the individual singles that you need or buy big lots. And like I said, sell the cards you don't need, or even trade some of those cards for cards that you need. That helps a ton. So I think that's the best thing that anybody can really do to grow your collection and save money in this hobby is buy big lots, big collections, and sell a lot of the cards individually, get some graded, do some trading, and then, keep a few cards that you need. Same thing with vending. If you guys want to seriously grow your collection, vending is probably the best way possible because, you can buy collections at 80% and 75% or 85%, and you can keep a couple cards that you need and then, sell the rest and still at least be even or make a little bit of money or maybe lose a little bit of money, but still you're getting really awesome cards that you needed for just a couple dollars. And it does take a lot of work. And another thing you guys can do is learn about some of these other cards that are not just in Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, because you never know what you're going to find one day. You might find a card in a box and just be like, oh, it's just a reverse holo, whatever. But it could be super minty, could grade a PSA 10, could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. You just never know. That's why even like Danny Phantom, when he does his videos where he shows like random trainer cards that you think are just worthless, but it's actually worth $1 or $2 because they're playable, that stuff adds up. You also have to learn to control the FOMO and be patient for a lot of this stuff because a lot of times stuff will go back down, even though it's new and you want it right away and it's your favorite thing. A lot of times if you wait, it usually gets a little bit cheaper. I know in this hobby right now, that's not always a guarantee, but 99% of the time in Pokemon, usually you can wait and it will get cheaper. And for most cards still, they're going to get a little bit cheaper. Of course, we're going to get our handful of cards that get completely manipulated and spiked up or whatever it is. And another thing you can do, which probably saves me the most money out of anything that I've mentioned so far, is really think about your collection. Narrow down what you want to collect. I see a lot of people, they want to do master sets. All these big PokeTubers are pulling master sets, doing all these master sets. When master sets are extremely tough to sell, you're spending a decent amount of money on, commons, uncommons, rares, basic ultra EXs, full arts, stuff you might not like. You have no idea how many half completed master sets that I have bought on eBay and from like other people's collections and stuff. Because a lot of times they try to do too many and, you know, it's just tough to finish. So like for the Scarlet and Violet era, I only collect illustration rares and special illustration rares and a couple random cards here and there that I'm like obsessed with. But, you know, it helps narrow it down a little bit. That's still a ton of cards, but that's somewhat doable. So that's why I always mention too, go look at every single Pokemon from each generation and pick out your top 5 favorite Pokemon from each gen and then narrow it down from there. And then, you know, throw that in your collection. Do you want to collect every card of a certain Pokemon or whatever it is? So if you really, you know, take a week and think about your dream collection of what you really want to end up at and narrow it down, try to make it actually possible. Because a lot of people, you know, they want to master set every set. That's almost physically impossible unless you have like crazy money. So, you know, you just got to be realistic. So like for my collection, I did master sets through Gen 1 through Gen 3, but we are also only getting, you know, a handful of sets for each generation. It was much easier back then. And then I bought it a long time ago where it was much cheaper than it is now. But then everything after that, like we got level X's, prime cards, you know, the lowercase EXs, the big EXs. So I would just collect all of those. And then, of course, collect some random cards that I liked here and there. But, you know, just narrow it down and collecting the best cards from each generation or each era helped me save a ton of money instead of doing all these master sets. Now we're going to talk about grading for a little bit. Buying raw cards and getting them graded is definitely your best option. If you're smart with it, though, and you're picky, it really sucks when you spend a ton of money, wait months, and it's a bunch of 9s that come back. Because most 9s are worth the same as raw, so you could potentially lose money there. So you just got to be picky. One thing I like to do is if it's a collection that I'm buying or something, they don't have any graded cards, odds are there's probably a couple decent cards in there because they never got anything graded. And then two, just keeping your eye out for decent singles that you know are worth a decent chunk in a PSA 10. And then just checking them out when you're at card shows or card shops because you never know what you're going to find. A lot of card shops, they do not grade because it takes so long to get the cards back. And if they're getting constant collections in, or maybe they're not getting very many collections in at all, they want to keep those cases full. Sometimes you can find some really, really minty cards for sure. And then two, I know you're spending money on cards you maybe don't like just to get them graded, but when you get them back, you can sell them, profit, and then go buy cards you need for your collection. You know, there's a lot of people out there, if you work hard enough, you can basically collect for free. I swear, 90% of my collection I have probably gotten for free because, you know, technically not free because I put the work in, you know, where I technically didn't need to spend any money. It's just with my spare time, that's what I was doing. So it's kind of like a second job, but it was to grow my collection. You know, I've even heard people say scalping sealed products is the exact same as buying collections and selling them individually, which is just crazy to me because when you're scalping, you're literally buying stuff from a store where a ton of other kids want to get it and stuff like that. But when I'm buying someone's collection, they want to sell their collection. I'm actually helping them out by buying their collection. And then I have to put in hours and hours of work doing the research on all these cards, listing hundreds and hundreds of cards, and getting stuff graded. And then getting stuff graded can be risky because it might not come back what you think, and it takes months. Sometimes a card can be worth $1,000 when you go get your card sent in, and when you get it back, the card could be worth $500. That has happened so many times, and I feel like a lot of newer people in this hobby, they don't think that can happen. That's why a lot of PSA 10 cards are very risky, you know, spending a ton of money in such a hyped up market, because if the market does ever cool off, the first thing that usually crashes is those PSA 10 cards because they are so expensive and the pops are pretty high to where everybody's got it listed and they're all undercutting each other and it just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. All right, and now we're going to end on sealed. Now, of course, it's so tough right now to save money if you're buying sealed products. Your only chance really is to find restocks at Walmart or Target. If you guys are in Minnesota, they usually restock Walmart or Targets on Friday, I guess, earlier in the morning, like 10-ish. I've found a couple restocks randomly just walking in. I walked in once to get some diapers for my daughter, and there was a whole line there. So I was like, oh, okay, that's when they restock. So if you can find out when they restock, you have a decent chance of maybe every week or every other week, maybe standing in line for 20 minutes or half an hour and getting a few products here and there if you guys are really wanting to get some products. And I know that sucks. And otherwise, you can, you know, get some of these restocks or whatever on Pokemon Center or Best Buy, which is also super, super tough. But yeah, I genuinely feel bad for the people who just want to open up packs, or even the sealed collectors who just love to buy, you know, a box or two for their sealed collection. And, you know, they haven't been able to get anything lately. So yeah, for sealed products, it's definitely rough right now for sure. But like I mentioned, you can buy singles, work on master sets, do stuff like that. A lot of the singles are pretty expensive also, but there's a good handful of them that are reasonably priced. The Alone Executor from Surging Sparks. It's about the cheapest it's ever been. A lot of the Temporal Forces SIRs, they're some of the cheapest they have ever been. Salamence EX from Journey Together, beautiful card. So that card's pretty affordable for what it is. But that's one of the reasons too why I like to make that content, to show you guys some amazing cards that are dirt cheap. Like in my last Sunday video, where I show what I'm picking up, there's a ton of XY cards that were like the first illustration rares. You can get them in reverse holo too. The reverse holo is a little more expensive, but still they're dirt cheap. I'm talking a few dollars to like $10, $15 for some of the reverse holos. And they're beautiful cards of really popular Pokemon. Gyarados, Entei, Articuno. So, finding good deals like that and finding cards that have not boomed yet is another way to just save so much money. Especially, you've seen it 1,000 times. When a card goes crazy, it gets way more sales. People want it because it goes crazy. They didn't want it when it was dirt cheap. So if you're the person who's buying it when it's dirt cheap, like myself, when I buy all my promos when they're, 50 cents or $1, buying the Snorlax promos, the Mew EX promos, all those, Greninja and stuff like that, I'm saving so much money, and I'm actually making money in the future to where I can sell some of these cards and go buy a Gold Star card or a Crystal card or a Bubble Mew EX or whatever it is for my collection. So there's a ton of different things you guys can be doing to save money in this hobby. And yeah, there's a lot of people who even think I like when the market is like this, when I definitely like when it's much more chill and I can buy as many boxes as I want for dirt cheap. You guys know I hate overpaying on stuff too. But all right, I think that is everything. The only other thing that popped in my head is these people that keep restoring a lot of these vintage cards and damaged cards, they're getting pretty good. I just watched a full video of a guy, like a full in-depth video, not just a little short, where they showed the card before, after, everything, and he made it look good. And he didn't even really do any like polish or like weird chemicals or anything like that. He just, worked out the creases and stuff, and it looked significantly better. So, I mean, that is definitely going to save some people some money or make some people some money for sure. Buying a card for, a PSA 5 price and doing a little bit of work to it and getting it graded and getting a PSA 7, or even selling it, instead of moderately played raw, you can sell it for lightly played or whatever it is. So yeah, there's a ton of people out there doing that. So that might be something you might want to look into, especially if you have a ton of old vintage cards that are kind of damaged. That might be a decent option. But all right, that was this month's how-to video. If you guys like this content, please make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a like, and then remember to comment your favorite electric Pokemon to be entered into this giveaway. Then if you guys want to support more, you guys can check out my Instagram, my TikTok, or my YouTube membership. It's only 99 cents a month. But all right, I want you guys to have a great day. And if you guys want to watch my last Pokemon Flying Friday, click this video here. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.